A desperate beginning Nora Bennett stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of the downtown medical center. Dark circles shadowed her eyes like bruises. Her light brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her scrubs hung loose on her frame. She had lost weight over the past few months. Too busy working to remember to eat properly, 20-6 years old and already exhausted beyond measure. But there was no choice. Not when Rachel needed tuition money for her final year at State University. Not when their father's medical bills from last year still arrived in the mail like unwelcome reminders of mortality. She splashed cold water on her face and checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Rachel. Nora would call her back after this shift. Right now, she needed to focus on getting through the next 12 hours at Pinnacle Care, the most expensive private medical facility in the city. The hallways were silent as Nora walked toward the nurse's station. Everything here was different from the chaotic public hospital where she worked days. Here, the floors gleamed. The air smelled faintly of lavender instead of disinfectant. Soft, classical music played from hidden speakers. This was where the wealthy came to heal in comfort and privacy. Beverly, the head nurse, looked up from her computer. She was a woman in her late 50s with sharp features and an even sharper gaze. Nothing escaped Beverly's notice. Bennett, good. You're on time. Beverly stood and gestured for Nora to follow. Let me show you your assignment for tonight. They walked down a corridor lined with private rooms. Each door had a small nameplate, discreet and elegant. Room 12, Beverly said, stopping in front of a closed door. James Thornton, 42 years old. Car accident 6 weeks ago. Traumatic brain injury. He's been in a coma since admission. Nora nodded, absorbing the information. Coma patients required constant monitoring, but were often stable. It would be a quiet night, which was both a blessing and slightly unnerving after the constant activity of her day job. His vitals are stable, Beverly continued. Check them every 2 hours. Document everything. His family pays for the best care, so make sure he gets it. She paused, her expression softening slightly. And Bennett, I know you work other jobs, but when you're here, you're only here. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Beverly handed her a tablet with James Thornton's medical records and walked away, her shoes clicking against the polished floor. Meeting. James Thornton and Nora took a deep breath and opened the door to room 12. The space was large, more like a hotel suite than a hospital room. A king-size bed occupied the center, surrounded by state-of-the-art monitoring equipment that beeped softly. Large windows overlooked the city skyline, glittering with lights in the darkness, and in the bed lay James Thornton. Nora approached slowly, her trained eyes scanning the monitors first. Heart rate steady. Blood pressure normal. Oxygen levels good. Everything looked stable. Then she looked at him. James Thornton was handsome in a way that seemed almost unfair. Strong jawline, dark hair that fell across his forehead, broad shoulders visible even beneath the hospital gown. But it was his face that caught her attention. He looked peaceful, as if he were simply sleeping rather than trapped in unconsciousness. Nora pulled a chair beside the bed and sat down. The silence pressed against her ears. She was used to noise, to constant movement and urgent voices. This quiet felt strange. "Hello, Mr. Thornton," she said softly, more out of habit than expectation of response. "My name is Nora. I'll be taking care of you tonight." No response. Of course not. She checked his made notes on the tablet, adjusted his pillows slightly. Standard care routine. But something about the silence made her uncomfortable. At home, Rachel would be studying, probably with music playing. The apartment was never this quiet. "Hope you don't mind if I talk," Nora continued. "I read somewhere that coma patients can sometimes hear voices. Maybe it helps." She smiled at herself. "Or maybe I just need to hear a voice, even if it's my own." She settled back in the chair and began to talk. About her day. About the funny incident in the hospital cafeteria. About Rachel's upcoming exams. Small, meaningless things that filled the silence. An hour passed, then 2. Nora stood to check his vitals again, marking everything on the chart. As she reached to adjust the blanket covering him, her hand brushed against his fingers. They were warm. Of course they were warm. He was alive. But something about the contact made her pause. She looked at his face. Peaceful and still. And then his fingers moved. The first sign, Nora jerked her hand back, her heart suddenly racing. She stared at James Thornton's hand, lying motionless on the white sheet. Had she imagined it? Coma patients sometimes had reflexes, involuntary movements. It didn't mean consciousness. It was just the body's automatic responses. But her hand trembled slightly as she reached out again. This time, deliberately placing her fingers against his palm. Nothing. Okay, Nora, she whispered to herself. You're tired. That's all. She returned to her chair and tried to focus on the medical charts, but her eyes kept drifting back to his face. There was something about him that drew her attention. Maybe it was the tragedy of seeing someone so young and vital trapped in this state. Maybe it was simple loneliness, seeking connection, even with someone who couldn't respond. You know what? She said, putting down the tablet. I bet you're tired of silence, too. Let me tell you a real story. Not the cheerful stuff I usually tell patients. She leaned back and began to talk honestly. About working 3 jobs. About the crushing weight of responsibility. About lying awake at night, doing mental math, trying to figure out how to pay for everything. About the guilt she felt for resenting it sometimes, for wanting her own life instead of carrying everyone else's burdens. I'm sorry, she said after a while. You didn't ask to hear my problems? You have enough of your own. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. I just wish someone understood, you know? How hard it is to keep going when you're this tired. Behind her, she heard a soft sound. Nora turned quickly. James Thornton lay exactly as before, motionless and peaceful. But she could have sworn she heard something. A breath, a sigh. She approached the bed slowly, her nurse's training warring with something else. Something that whispered this was different. If you can hear me, she said quietly. Standing beside him, please, give me a sign. The monitors beeped steadily. The machines hummed. The classical music played softly through the speakers. Nothing changed. Nora shook her head. Exhaustion was making her imagine things. She needed coffee, but as she turned to leave, she heard it again. Definite this time. A soft exhalation, different from his regular breathing pattern. She spun back around and leaned close, studying his face. His eyes remained closed. His expression stayed peaceful. But something felt different. The air in the room felt charged, alive with possibility. James, she whispered. His fingers twitched. This time Nora was certain. She grabbed her phone, ready to call Beverly, but hesitated. What would she say? That she thought she saw a movement? They would tell her it was reflexes, nothing more. They might even remove her from his care, thinking she was too tired to work properly. She put the phone down and pulled her chair close to the bed. I don't know if you can really hear me, she said softly. But if you can, I want you to know something. You're not alone. Whatever you're going through, wherever you are right now, you're not alone. The rest of the night passed in strange awareness. Nora performed her duties mechanically, checking vitals, recording data, adjusting equipment. But her attention never left James Thornton. She watched for any sign, any movement, any indication that he was more than just a body kept alive by machines. As dawn approached and her shift neared its end, Nora stood beside his bed one last time. I'll be back tomorrow night, she said. Until then, keep fighting. Something tells me you're stronger than anyone knows. She reached out and gently squeezed his hand. This time, she felt it clearly. His fingers curled around hers, just slightly, just enough to be unmistakable. A deliberate response. Nora's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced with possibilities and questions. But before she could process what this meant, Beverly appeared in the doorway. Bennett, your shift is over. Day nurse is here. Nora released James's hand and stepped back, her professional mask sliding into place. Everything's stable. All vitals are normal. No changes overnight. She gathered her belongings and left. But her thoughts remained in room 12 with James Thornton and the secret she now carried. He was aware. Somehow, despite what the doctor said, he was conscious, and for reasons she didn't yet understand, he wanted to keep it hidden. The return Nora could barely focus during her day shift at County General Hospital. Her hands moved through familiar routines, checking patients, administering medications, updating charts. But her mind was elsewhere, trapped in room 12 at Pinnacle Care with a man who shouldn't be conscious but was. She had spent the entire day questioning herself. Maybe she had imagined it. The exhaustion had created illusions where none existed. But deep down she knew the truth. James Thornton had responded to her touch, deliberately, consciously. The question was, why would someone pretend to be in a coma? By the time her evening shift at Pinnacle Care began, Nora's nerves were wound tight. She walked through the elegant hallways with purpose, nodding briefly at Beverly before heading straight to room 12. The door was closed. She paused outside, her hand on the handle, suddenly uncertain. What would she find? What would she say? She pushed the door open. James Thornton lay exactly as she had left him 12 hours ago. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. The evening light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. Nora closed the door behind her and approached the bed slowly. She checked his vitals first, documenting everything properly. Then she pulled the chair close and sat down. "Hello, James," she said quietly. "I've been thinking about you all day." No response. "I know you can hear me," she continued. "I know you responded last night. I felt it." The silence stretched between them. Nora leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "I don't know why you're doing this. I don't know what you're hiding from or what you're afraid of. I need you to understand something. If you're truly conscious, you need proper medical evaluation. The treatment protocols are completely different. You could be hurting yourself by maintaining this deception." Still nothing. Nora sighed and leaned back. "Fine, keep your secrets, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here every night, talking to you, waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me the truth." She opened a book she had brought from home, one of Rachel's textbooks on psychology. For the next hour, she read aloud, her voice filling the quiet room. It felt foolish, but also strangely comforting. At midnight, during her routine check, Nora noticed something odd. James's heart rate had increased slightly, nothing alarming but different from his baseline. She noted it on the chart and looked at his face. His breathing had changed too. "Faster? Shallower?" "James," she said softly. His eyelids fluttered. Nora's breath caught. She moved closer, her training taking over. "Can you hear me? If you can hear me, try to open your eyes." Slowly, incrementally, his eyes opened. They were gray, she noticed. Deep gray like storm clouds. They were looking directly at her with complete awareness and recognition. "Hello, Nora," he said, his voice rough from weeks of disuse. The truth revealed Nora stumbled backward, nearly knocking over her chair. Her hand reached for the call button instinctively. "Please don't," James said quickly. "Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain." "You've been awake this whole time?" Nora's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? At the medical protocols, the medications, everything has been wrong." "I know." He tried to sit up, wincing at the effort. His muscles were weak from weeks of immobility. "And I'm sorry for deceiving everyone, but I had no choice." "There's always a choice," Nora said, her shock giving way to anger. "People have been worried about you. Your doctors think you might never wake up. And meanwhile, you've been conscious?" "Not the whole time," James admitted. "I woke up about 2 weeks ago, alone in the middle of the night. And the first thing I remembered was that someone tried to kill me." The words hung in the air between them. Nora slowly sat back down. "The car accident." "Wasn't an accident?" James's jaw tightened. "Someone cut my brake lines. I was driving home from the office late at night when I realized the brakes weren't working. I tried everything, but the car went off the road. I'm lucky to be alive. If that's true, you need to tell the police." I did better. I stayed quiet and watched. His eyes were hard now, calculating. "Everyone who visited me, everything they said when they thought I couldn't hear. You'd be amazed what people reveal around a coma patient. Business partners discussing how to divide my company. Lawyers arguing over my estate. People I thought were friends celebrating what they thought was my imminent death. Nora felt a chill run down her spine. That's horrible. That's reality. James looked at her intently. Everyone who came here wanted something from me. My money, my business, my connections. Everyone except you. I'm your nurse. It's my job to care for you. No, he shook his head. You did more than your job. You talked to me like I was a person. You shared your life with me. You were real in a way no one else was. Nora felt her cheeks flush. You had no right to listen to my private thoughts. You're right, I'm sorry. Yeah. But Nora, you have no idea how much those conversations meant. Lying here, pretending to be unconscious, listening to people plot against me. It was driving me insane. And then you would come in and talk about your sister's exams or the funny thing that happened at the cafeteria. And suddenly I remembered what real life was supposed to be like. Before Nora could respond, the door opened. Beverly stood in the doorway, her eyes widening at the sight of James sitting up, awake and talking. Mr. Thornton, you're awake. Hey. She rushed forward, immediately reaching for the call button. I need to notify your doctors immediately. Wait, James said firmly. Please, just wait. Sir, you've been in a coma for 6 weeks. Doctors need to evaluate you right away. I understand, but give me 10 minutes, please. This is important. Beverly looked uncertain, torn between protocol and the authority in James's voice. Finally, she nodded curtly. 10 minutes, and I'm calling everyone. She left, closing the door behind her. James turned back to Nora. I have a proposition for you. I don't want to hear it. Yes, you do, because it involves more money than you'll make in 3 years of working yourself to death at multiple jobs. Nora froze. How do you know about that? You told me. Remember you thought I couldn't hear, so you were honest? He leaned forward. Here's what I'm offering. Come work for me privately. It'll help me recover, but do it at my home, not here. Can't trust the people in this facility. Someone tried to kill me once. They might try again. This is insane, probably. But I'm serious about the money. Enough to pay for Rachel's entire education. Enough to cover your father's remaining medical bills. Enough for you to stop working yourself into the ground. Nora stood up, pacing to the window. Everything in her screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, crazy. But the money, God, the money would solve everything. Why me? She asked, without turning around. 'Cause you're the only person who treated me like a human being instead of an asset to be claimed? Because I trust you. Right now, you're the only person I can trust. Nora turned to face him. If I agree, I need full transparency. No more lies. No more secrets. Deal. I want it in writing. A contract. My lawyer will draw one up tomorrow. And if I feel unsafe or uncomfortable at any point, I walk away. No questions. No consequences. James smiled. You drive a hard bargain, Nurse Bennett. That's the deal. Take it or leave it, taken. The door opened again, and Beverly returned with 2 doctors in tow. The room suddenly filled with activity, questions, examinations. Nora stepped back, letting the professionals do their work. But across the chaos, James's eyes found hers. A silent promise passed between them. Everything was about to change. Dangerous complications 3 days later, Nora stood in the lobby of James's penthouse apartment building downtown. The doorman had verified her identity and given her a key card for the private elevator.
Nice.
As she rode up to the 40th floor, her stomach churned with nervous energy. What was she doing? She had quit her evening shift at Pinnacle Care, told them she had a private nursing opportunity that was too good to pass up. Beverly had been disappointed but understanding. The money James offered was real, verified by a contract his lawyer had delivered to her apartment. Half up front, half upon completion of 6 weeks of care. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse. Nora stepped out and gasped. Floor to ceiling. Windows surrounded the space on 3 sides, offering panoramic views of the city. Furniture was modern and expensive, all clean lines and neutral colors. Art that probably cost more than her annual salary hung on the walls. Impressive, isn't it? She turned to find James walking toward her from what looked like a bedroom. He moved slowly, still weak, but much stronger than 3 days ago. It's incredible, Nora admitted. Welcome to your new workplace. He gestured around. Your room is down that hall. second door on the right. I've had it fully furnished, but if you need anything else, just let me know. This is too much. This is what I can afford, and you deserve comfort while you're taking care of me." He sat down carefully on the sofa. "Besides, you're doing me a favor. The doctors wanted me to stay at the hospital for another 2 weeks. I convinced them I'd receive better care with a private nurse at home." Nora set down her bag and pulled out her medical kit. "Speaking of care, let's check your vitals." They fell into a routine over the next few days. Nora monitored James's recovery, helped him with physical therapy exercises, managed his medications. He was a surprisingly good patient, following instructions without complaint. But the more time she spent with him, the more she noticed things. The way he would suddenly go quiet when his phone rang. The late-night calls he took in his office with the door closed. The tension that never quite left his shoulders. On the 5th day, a woman arrived unannounced. Nora was in the kitchen preparing lunch when she heard the elevator. She walked out to find a tall, elegant woman in her 30s standing in the living room. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, an air of ownership. "Are you?" the woman demanded. "I'm Nora, James's nurse." "Who are you?" "Diana Fletcher, James's business partner." She looked Nora up and down dismissively. "Where is he?" "In his office. But he's resting and shouldn't be disturbed. I'll disturb him if I want to." Diana walked past Nora toward the office. "Excuse me, you can't just Diana open the office door without knocking." James looked up from his desk, his expression hardening. "Diana, what are you doing here?" "Checking on my partner." "You've been avoiding my calls. I've been recovering with her." Diana glanced back at Nora with obvious disdain. "Really, James? A nurse? Is this your new type?" "Diana, leave. Now. We need to discuss the Henderson merger. The board is getting impatient." "The board can wait until I'm fully recovered." Diana's perfectly made-up face twisted with frustration. "You've been out of commission for 2 months. The company needs leadership. If you can't provide it, maybe it's time to consider other options." "Are you threatening me?" James's voice went dangerously quiet. "I'm being practical. You nearly died, James. Maybe that's a sign you should step back. Let others take over. Get out."
"Diana?"
Diana stared at him for a long moment, then smiled coldly. "Fine. But this conversation isn't over." She walked past Nora without a glance and left. The silence after she left was heavy. Nora walked into the office. "Friend of yours?" "Business partner. We started the company together 10 years ago." James rubbed his face tiredly. "She's been pushing hard to take over while I've been incapacitated. Do you trust her?" James looked up at Nora, his gray eyes serious. "I used to. Now, I'm not sure I trust anyone except me. Except you." That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She lay in the expensive guest bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Diana Fletcher's barely concealed hostility. Thinking about James's admission that someone had tried to kill him. Thinking about how deep she was getting into something she didn't fully understand. She got up and walked quietly through the dark penthouse. A light was on in James's office. Through the partially open door, she could hear him on the phone. "Oh, I don't care what Diana says. The company is mine, and I'm not stepping down." Pause. "No, she doesn't know anything. I'm keeping Nora out of this. She's just here to help me recover." Nora felt something twist in her chest. Just here to help him recover. Nothing more. She turned to go back to her room, but the floor creaked under her foot. "I have to go," James said quickly. The light clicked off. Nora hurried back to her room and closed the door, her heart pounding. She climbed back into bed and lay in the darkness, wondering what exactly she had gotten herself into and wondering why it hurt to hear. James said she was just his nurse, nothing more. Shadows and secrets the next morning. Nora found James already awake, working on his laptop in the living room. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His coffee cup was half empty, and from the looks of it, he had been up for hours. "Should be resting," Nora said, setting down her medical bag. "I'll rest when I'm dead," James muttered, then seemed to realize what he said. "Sorry, bad joke. Terrible joke." She sat down across from him. "We need to talk." "About About whatever is really going on here. About Diana. About whoever tried to kill you. About why you're working yourself sick when you should be recovering. James closed his laptop and leaned back. For a long moment, he just looked at her as if trying to decide something. You want the truth? He finally said, I think I deserve it. You do? He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. My company is worth $3 billion. Diana and I built it from nothing, working 18-hour days for years. We were equal partners in everything. 2 months before my accident, I discovered something. Diana has been secretly negotiating to sell the company to our biggest competitor. Behind my back. She stands to make over $1 billion personally from the deal. Nora felt her stomach drop. That's why someone tried to kill you. I can't prove it was her. But the timing is suspicious. I confronted her about the sale 3 days before my brakes failed. She denied everything, said I was being paranoid. And then I ended up in the hospital. James? If you really believe she tried to kill you, why haven't you gone to the police? Because I have no proof. Just suspicions and circumstantial evidence. Diana is smart. Whatever she did, she covered her tracks perfectly. He turned to face Nora. That's why I needed to wake up in secret. I needed time to gather evidence without her knowing I was aware and conscious. And did you? Gather evidence? I'm close. I have a private investigator working on it. Once I have solid proof, I'll take everything to the authorities and the board. Nora processed this information, feeling the weight of it settle on her shoulders. So when Diana said you were avoiding her calls, I was buying time. Keeping her uncertain about my condition and mental state, he walked back and sat down across from Nora.
Oh.
I'm sorry I dragged you into this. I thought I could keep you separate from the business side. But Diana showing up here yesterday, that was a problem. Now, she knows about you. What does that mean? It means you might be in danger too. The words hung in the air between them. Nora felt a chill run down her spine despite the warm morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Maybe I should leave then, she said quietly. Maybe you should. James leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. I would understand completely. This isn't what you signed up for. You agreed to be a nurse, not to get tangled in corporate conspiracy and possible murder attempts, but you want me to stay. Selfishly, desperately, yes. His voice was raw. You're the only person I trust right now, Nora. The only person who sees me as James, instead of as a means to money or power. If you leave, I lose that. I lose you. Nora's heart pounded. James, I know it's not fair to ask you to stay. I know I should let you go for your own safety, but I'm asking anyway. Please stay. Before Nora could answer, her phone rang. Rachel's name flashed on the screen. I need to take this, she said, standing and walking to her room. Hey, Rach, what's up? Nora, thank God. Rachel's voice sounded strange, frightened. Something weird just happened. What? Are you okay? I'm fine, but there was a man outside my dorm this morning. He was taking pictures of the building. When I asked what he was doing, he said he was just a photographer. But Nora, he knew my name. He called me Rachel before I told him who I was. Ice flooded Nora's veins. Where are you now? Back in my room with my roommate, but I'm scared. Who is that guy? Listen to me carefully. Lock your door. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm going to call you back in 10 minutes, okay? Nora, you're scaring me. I know, honey, but just do what I say. I'll explain everything soon. She ended the call and walked back to the living room. James took one look at her face and stood up. What happened? Someone was taking pictures of Rachel's dorm. He knew her name. Nora's hands were shaking. This is because of me, isn't it? Because Diana knows I'm here with you. James's expression went hard. I'll make some calls. I have a security team. They can be at Rachel's school within an hour. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Nora said, her voice rising. I came here to help you, to make money for my family. Now, my sister is in danger because of corporate games I don't even understand. I'm sorry. God, Nora, I'm so sorry. James pulled out his phone. Let me fix this. I promise. I'll keep Rachel safe. How? How can you promise that when you can't even keep yourself safe? The accusation stung. She could see it in his eyes. But it was true. They were both in over their heads. James made 3 quick calls. Security team en route to Rachel's school. Background check on the photographer. Increased security at the penthouse building. He moved with the efficiency of someone used to solving problems with money and connections. When he finished, he turned back to Nora. Rachel will have a security detail within 45 minutes. They're professionals, former police and military. Nothing will happen to her. You can't know that. No, I can't. I can do everything in my power to protect her. And you. Nora sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted. I don't know if I can do this, James. This is so far beyond what I expected. Sat beside her, careful not to touch her, but close enough that she could feel his presence. Then leave. I'll make sure you and Rachel have security until this is resolved. I'll pay you the full amount we agreed on even though you're leaving early. Just please, be safe. You're giving me permission to leave. I'm giving you the choice. Stay and help me, knowing it might be dangerous. Or go, and I'll handle this alone. He finally looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. I want you to stay more than I can express, but I want you safe even more. The attack Nora didn't leave. She told herself it was because of the money, because James was still recovering and needed medical care. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was staying because despite everything, despite the danger and the complications, she didn't want to leave him alone. Over the next 3 days, tension filled the penthouse like a physical presence. Rachel was safe, surrounded by security that reported to James every few hours. But the threat remained, invisible and undefined. Diana called twice. James didn't answer. The private investigator sent an encrypted file that James studied for hours in his office, its expression growing darker, and Nora watched it all, feeling helpless and increasingly certain that something bad was coming. On the 4th night, James asked her to go out with him. Out, Nora repeated. You're barely cleared for light activity. Where would we even go? There's a restaurant 2 blocks from here. Need to meet someone, a source who has information about Diana. He won't come here and I can't send anyone else. It has to be me. Then I'm coming with you. Nora, non-negotiable. You're still my patient, and you're not going anywhere without medical supervision. James smiled despite the situation. You're stubborn. You're reckless. We balance each other out. They left the penthouse at 8 p.m. The security team wanted to accompany them, but James insisted they keep their distance. He didn't want to spook his source. The restaurant was small and dimly lit, tucked into a quiet street. James led Nora to a booth in the back. A man was already waiting there, nervous and fidgeting with his water glass. You're late, the man said. Traffic. This is my associate, Nora. The man barely glanced at her. I have what you need. Proof that Diana authorized the brake line cutting. She paid a mechanic $20,000 in cash. I have bank records showing the withdrawal and security footage of her meeting with him. He slid a flash drive across the table. James picked it up, his hand steady. This is verified? Dates, times, transactions. It's enough to go to the police and the board. Thank you. Your payment will be transferred tonight. The man left quickly, clearly nervous about being seen. James pocketed the flash drive and looked at Nora. We have her. Finally, we have proof. But Nora felt uneasy. This seems too easy. Why would she leave such an obvious trail? She never thought I'd wake up to follow it. They left the restaurant and started walking back to the penthouse. The street was quiet, nearly empty. Streetlights cast pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. They were halfway back when Nora heard footsteps behind them, fast, purposeful. James, she said quietly. He heard it too. They walked faster, but the footsteps matched their pace. Then someone grabbed Nora's arm and yanked her backward. She screamed. James spun around. 2 men, both large and wearing dark clothes, blocked their path. A third held Nora's arms behind her back. Give us the drive, one of the men said. James's expression went cold. Let her go first. Drive first. I said, Let her go." The man holding Nora pulled out a knife, pressing it against her side. Nora felt the sharp point through her jacket and went very still. "The drive, Mr. Thornton, or we see how much blood a nurse can lose before she passes out." James's face went pale. His hand moved toward his pocket. "No." Nora shouted, "Don't give it to them." The knife pressed harder. She felt a sharp pain and gasped. "Nora," James pulled out the flash drive. "Here, take it. Just let her go." One of the other men stepped forward to take it. And then everything happened at once. James threw the flash drive past the men, making them turn to watch where it went. In that split second of distraction, he lunged forward and grabbed the wrist of the man holding the knife. They struggled. Nora twisted free and stumbled backward. Someone shouted. More people appeared, James's security team finally catching up. The attackers ran, disappearing into the darkness. James caught Nora as she swayed. "Are you hurt? Let me see." Blood stained her jacket. Not much, but enough to show the knife had broken skin. "We need to get you to a hospital," James said, his voice tight with fear. "I'm fine. It's just a shallow cut. We need to find that flash drive." But when they searched, the drive was gone. One of the attackers must have grabbed it while running away. All their evidence vanished. Final truth back at the penthouse. Nora sat on the sofa while James cleaned and bandaged the knife wound on her side. His hands were shaking. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Stop apologizing and tell me the truth." Nora winced as he applied antiseptic. "All of it. No more partial stories." James sat back on his heels, looking up at her. In the lamplight, she could see the exhaustion and fear in his face. "Diana isn't the only one trying to take over the company," he said quietly. "There's a consortium of investors who want to buy us out. Diana is working with them, but it's worse than that. It's the attempted murder, the threats to you and Rachel, that's all them. They want me dead or too scared to fight back. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because the more you knew, the more danger you were in. I thought I could handle it, gather evidence, expose them all at once, but I failed. And now you're hurt because of my failure." Nora took his face in her hands, making him look at her. "James, listen to me. You didn't fail. You're still alive. We're both still alive, and we're going to figure this out. How? They have the evidence. They'll destroy it, and I'll have nothing. We make new evidence. Go to the police. Tell them everything. We fight this the right way, with the law on our side. The police will want proof I don't have. Then we get proof. You have resources, connections. You told me Diana left a trail. There must be others who know what she's doing." James looked at her like she was something precious and fragile. "Why are you staying after everything? Why haven't you run?" "'Cause I care about you, you idiot." The words came out before Nora could stop them. "I care about you, and I'm not leaving you to fight this alone." His eyes searched hers. "Nora, and before you say anything, I know this is complicated. I know you're still recovering and dealing with people trying to kill you. I know I'm just the nurse you hired. But I care about you anyway. I can't help it." "Just the nurse?" James gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "Nora, you're the only real thing in my life. Everything else is business and money and power games. But you're real. Ow! What we have. Whatever. This is between us. It's the only thing that matters to me." He leaned forward and kissed her, gentle at first, then deeper. Nora kissed him back, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. All the fear and tension of the past days poured into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," Nora agreed. "But you're stuck with me anyway." Next morning, they went to the police together. James told them everything, provided what documentation he still had, and filed a formal complaint. It wasn't much, but it was a start. 2 days later, Detective Linda Hayes called with news. "We've been investigating Diana Fletcher and her associates. We found records of the cash withdrawal your source mentioned. We also found the mechanic who tampered with your car. He's agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence." James closed his eyes, relief washing over him. "Thank you. There's more. We've arrested Diana Fletcher and 3 members of the investor consortium on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and corporate fraud. This case is going to be big, Mr. Thornton. You should prepare yourself. After the call ended, James turned to Nora. She was reading on the sofa, peaceful and present. When she looked up and saw his expression, she smiled. Good news. They arrested Diana. It's over. Not really over. Nora set down her book and walked to him, wrapping her arms around him. See? We figured it out. Together. Together, he repeated, holding her close. 6 months later, Nora stood on the balcony of the penthouse, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and pink. Behind her, she heard the door open and close. James's arms wrapped around her waist. Pulling her back against his chest, Rachel called. He said, "She aced her finals. Dean's List again." Of course she did. She's brilliant.
Hi.
She gets it from her sister. Nora laughed and turned in his arms. 6 months had changed everything. The trial was over. Diana and her co-conspirators were in prison. James's company was stronger than ever, restructured and thriving, and Nora was no longer his nurse. She was simply his, and he was hers. "I have something for you," James said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Nora's breath caught. "James, before you panic, it's not what you think. Not yet, anyway." He opened the box to reveal a key. "I want you to move in here permanently. Not as my nurse, not as my employee, as my partner. In everything." Tears filled Nora's eyes. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything. I love you, Nora Bennett. You've saved my life in more ways than one. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to build a life with you, so what do you say?" Nora took the key and smiled through her tears. "I say yes to all of it." He kissed her as the sun set behind them, painting their future in golden light. The nightmare was over. The danger had passed, and what remained was something neither of them had expected to find: love. Real, honest, transformative love. And for the first time in her life, Nora Bennett felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Home.